church planting in Washington D.C, a pet ministry in Ecuador, and mission to people with special needs in Indonesia. All this and much more coming up next. Hello and welcome to Mission 360. I'm Gary Krause. On today's program, we're going to be talking about mission right here in Washington, D.C. And behind me, you can see the Washington Monument. And when that was first officially opened to the public in 1888, it was the world's tallest building. And of course, it's dedicated to America's first president, General George Washington. Well, on today's program, we're going to travel all around the world. But first up, let's travel to Indonesia to see a special ministry to people with special needs.
One small step can be a huge leap of faith for the Lord. Mundari, a local church member in the city of Manado, Indonesia, decided to make a difference by doing little acts of kindness for people who are visually impaired. He loves to try new things and make friends. After one busy day at work, he felt so tired and decided that he needed a massage. He went to a rehabilitation center for visually impaired people to find out if he could get a massage from one of the students. The center had just finished a training course for a massage, and one of the students kindly offered to practice his new skills on Mundari. During the massage, Mundari started to talk with the student. They talked about work, church, and life in general. Mundari was able to share about his church and the Bible. The small talk grew deeper, and by the end of the massage, the student was very interested in what he'd learned from Mundari. That simple massage began Mundari's friendship not only with the student, but also with other people staying in the rehabilitation center. It didn't take long before Mundari started a ministry in the center and reached out to more students.
The reason why we serve our visually impaired friends is that when Jesus was in this world, He cared for them. He touched their eyes and healed them. Therefore, as Christ followers, we extend compassion to our visually challenged friends.
Mundari learned from his friend that the center allowed worship services for all their Christian students. This created many opportunities for Mundari and his church to minister to the students through medical missionary work and worship services.
We are so happy for the opportunity to reach out to our visually impaired friends here in Manado, especially from the Adventists. They need care, acceptance from the society. The institution shouldn't be the only one responsible for their rehabilitation. This group of people also needs compassion and support from the community, so they can live normally and be accepted by the society. We aim to teach them to live independently after their training in this institution.
The staff and the director for the rehabilitation center are grateful for the activities conducted by the local Adventist church.
The reason why I'm so happy is because I understand that not all visually impaired individuals receive the same attention and care from the community. We're glad to know that Adventists care for us. I know that there are some organizations and churches that visit us here once a year, but the Adventist Church makes it a priority to visit us here regularly.
Outside the rehabilitation center, Mundari took his friendships with the visually impaired to another level. He invited them to come and worship at his church on Sabbath, and many went. It was a wonderful experience to see them singing praises and hymns. Not being able to see is in itself a huge challenge for the visually impaired. Mundari has resolved in his heart not only to share a description of God's beautiful creation here on earth, but also to point them to heaven.
I know Adventists really care for us, and based on our experience, I trust that Adventists are always ready to serve us and be with us.
Please pray for Mundari and the church members who are serving our friends in Manado, Indonesia. Pray for our visually impaired friends who recently joined this group and discovered love, truth, and community through this ministry.
My guest is Pastor Emil Peeler, who is the senior pastor of the Capitol Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church, right in the heart of Washington, D.C. Pastor Peeler, thanks for joining us today.
We are honored to be here with you today.
Now, your church has been a lighthouse on Capitol Hill since like the early 1970s, I believe.
Yes. It is. It's a great place to do ministry, and even in the changing demographic, it has always been right there for the community.
Wonderful. Now, then let me say to viewers, if you want an inspirational experience, Google Capitol Hill Adventist Church and join one of their worship services, and you will be inspired. Pastor Peeler, a few years ago, you had a vision for doing something special in your community. Can you tell us about that?
I certainly can. Well, God put in our heart, after we did some surveys, ways that we could connect with our community in a very viable way. It has transitioned, demographics have changed. And one of the ways God clearly shared with me is that through the area of counseling and therapy, to provide that. And so we officially opened the Capitol Hill Resource Center in October of 2019. And it's been an amazing journey. And although you see that we started it right before the pandemic, but
yes,
we wanted really to be a center of influence, not just weird, detached fanatics, but we really want to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. So we want to become a light in darkness and increase the footprints of Christ in our community, offer help, healing, hope to our community.
Wonderful. Now, of course, there are many needs in your community. What made you particularly focus on this area, Pastor?
Well, we did a survey, and one of the values of our community basically is that they valued good counseling and good therapy. And so we gathered a team of Christian business professionals and attorneys, realtors, mental health professionals, all within our church. And we prayed for a plan to present to our congregation. And so within a course of a year, God allowed us to purchase a $1.9 million building right across the street from our church. It was a former medical building, and God really did some amazing things for us to purchase that. And we got together a team and a plan, started a nonprofit, and God has blessed ever since.
Wonderful. Now, I like the way that you talked about this as being an urban center of influence. In what ways do you see it as a center of influence, Pastor?
Well, basically, what we try to do is to allow people to see Christ through kindness and through services. And we began by kind of breaking down the barriers by being good neighbors as a church. But we wanted to do more than just be good neighbors. We want to provide tangible services so that people could connect with people who are real and are concerned about the holistic being of the people of our community.
It sounds very much like Christ's method of ministry to me.
Absolutely. And it's to reach out and to make sure that you provide help for the needs and then bid them follow me. And it's worked out really, really, really well. If I could just share some of the successes, even during the pandemic, we sponsored a tour of the center with the District of Columbia Ward 6 councilman. It was powerful, and he was so moved, and he almost was moved to tears. He and his staff came over and was so thankful and very grateful. We had a smoking cessation plan that happened the week before the pandemic. Just hit. We had right from the center, we had a nutrition for cancer patients and people who had a cancer ailment. We had the personal physician who's a member of our church, Vice President Walter Mondale, who just died. And he and his wife had a fantastic nutrition program just for cancer patients. we even, and because of some of the racial tensions, we even were able to build our support for our law enforcement. We sponsored 5 surprise hot breakfasts and inspiration cards, gift bags to our law enforcement and some of our firefighters, so that they would know that we support them, that we love them, and that we want to build a community. And so we tried to do those things that really helped out so that we could really begin to foster a wonderful, wonderful relationship so that God would be seen through us.
What a blessing. Now, you use the term that the center helps break down barriers. And
Yes.
In an urban environment, you face many types of barriers, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Barriers such as the immediate community is upper middle class because it has gentrified. But then in our surrounding community, we still have homelessness. We still have a lot of poverty that goes on. We have things that we need to address. And so we don't do a either or, we do a both and. And so we have provided services such as even we established a Capitol Hill sewing circle. And it was a circle from age 16 through 92. And what they did was cut masks, patterns, and sold over 500 masks that were distributed to Capitol Hill seniors and community at large. And even the Adventist Community Services donated T-shirts, which were used to make some of the masks. Most of the fabric was provided by the sewing circle. And so we've done a lot even over this last year just to make sure that we are connected with our community.
Fantastic. Pastor Piela, thank you so much for sharing just a little bit of what you're doing, and may God continue to bless you.
Thank you. May God bless you too. Thank you for having us on.
Viewers at home, here we have an example of putting Christ's method into practice. Finding out what the needs of the community are, ministering to them, showing sympathy, winning confidence, and bidding people to follow Jesus. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Washington, D.C., and we're on Capitol Hill. And directly behind me, you can see the Capitol Hill Counseling and Resource Center that Dr. Piela was telling us about. Well, next up, we're going to stay right here in Washington, D.C., and learn about a church plant that has recently started.
Today I'm talking with Joanne Cortez, who is the associate pastor for the Beltsville Seventh-day Adventist Church. Joanne, where exactly is the Beltsville Church?
The Beltsville Church is in Maryland, and it's part of the Potomac Conference. But I'm also actually planting a church in Washington, D.C. So Beltsville is a multi-site. We're adding another campus in Washington, D.C. So it's exciting.
So Beltsville is basically on the border of Washington, D.C.
It is, yep. It's in the DMV area, which is D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, yes.
Okay. So you're planting a church in Washington, D.C. So is that both exciting and challenging?
Yes, it is.
What exactly are you doing to plant a church?
Well, we started meeting at the beginning of last year, right? Building community, getting to know the people. Then the pandemic hit, and that changed everything, the dynamics, everything, and definitely made it a lot more challenging because now we couldn't actually be right there in DC and get to know the community and the people. So we had to do everything online. So the few people I had already met, were part of the team. Then it was through them, who did they know? And then their friends, who did they know? So it's, networking pretty much. And then going on social media, trying to see who are the people that live in that area that we could connect to that may want to be a part of our church plant. And slowly through that, our team grew, and it's still growing with God's blessing. But it has been challenging because now we have to think differently, be more creative. How do we reach the people of DC? Before we were hanging out, at coffee shops and, getting to know people at the National Mall. Then we had to do all that online. So what we did online, we created our e-group, which is on Zoom every Friday night. We get together and we discuss relevant topics. We've also done the book of Acts, and we've done many different things to get to know each other, build community so people can bring their friends and we can get to know them as well. now that things are slightly opening up, where we're going to be doing things outdoors, get to know people that way as well, and continue hanging out, gathering, and doing exciting things to reach the community. Also, during this time, we've been able to partner with two great organizations. One is Fair Girls, which is an organization that fights human trafficking. And we also partnered with a school in Washington, D.C. And this coming week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So we're super excited because we're going to be able to share some love with the teachers there, and thank them for all they've done, because it's been difficult to teach kids during the pandemic. So we want to make sure that they know that we love them and appreciate them. So just because the pandemic hit doesn't mean that the mission has stopped. We can still love people, we can still connect with people, and still be Jesus to people. So it's exciting and challenging, but it is a blessing to see how God can use us regardless of what's happening, with the pandemic and things like that.
So when you're connecting with people online, is that a lot different? You said you had to do things differently, but I guess what you said was key, was love shines through.
It does. Online, you do have to pause a little so the other person talks. The interaction is a little different. Sometimes Zoom may break up, but we've been able to do it, and we've also had our online worship service once a month, which we call our pop-up, and that's a moment that we're able to worship together. So it's exciting to be able to see people, at least through a computer, through your phone, and connect that way. Because I think it's super important to be able to connect, because life is hard, and it can get lonely, but thank God for the blessing of technology to be able to journey together through this pandemic.
So you said you started to do some in-person events. So are you meeting some people that you've never actually seen in real life before? You've only seen them on a computer screen?
Yes, that is correct. It's like I know them, but I haven't met them personally, and it's happened quite a few times, It's like we're good old friends, and then, hey, this is the first time I meet you face to face. So it's great, because then that helps the relationship grow as well, because you get to know them beyond the screen, and it's nice, and they're able to bring their friends, and then the community grows.
Sure. Now we got a couple minutes left. Can you share a story maybe of somebody you've encountered and maybe whose life has been touched by what you're doing?
Of course. DC campus is all about reaching the unchurched, those who have not found a place in any church, or may be afraid to go back to church. This girl, Carmen, I invited her to our last online worship service, our pop-up. She came. After that pop-up, we got together on Zoom to just talk, because we want to worship together, but we also want to, talk and chat and let each other know what we're going through, how's life. And she joined us. And immediately we made her feel at home as part of the family. She showed us her baby, and she just felt the love and felt welcomed. I made sure to connect with her and follow up. And I spoke to her. And she told me her story, how she was afraid to go to church because she felt afraid of being rejected and criticized because she was a single mom. But what's beautiful about this is that a few weeks prior, her aunt had actually messaged me through Instagram and said, I have a niece that lives near your area, near your church. And I've been watching what you guys do on social media, and I can tell that you are exactly the kind of church she needs and is looking for. I can tell you're a church that is loving and welcoming, what she really, really needs. And the exciting thing is that when I spoke to Carmen and she felt at home and she loved being a part of our church, she's like, I've been wanting to dedicate my baby, and I also want to be baptized. And I would love it if you could do it for me. Maybe we could do it on the same day outside so my whole family could come and be a part of it. So you never know how God works. You don't know who's watching you and how they may have someone that lives nearby that needs Jesus and needs to experience his love through us. So we try to be intentional in being the hands and feet and heart of Jesus here and now. So when people see us, they see Jesus and want to get to know him more. So I continue to connect with Carmen. We're building a beautiful relationship and can't wait. Now we're planning for her baptism and her baby's dedication.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Joanne, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And now back to you, Gary.
Welcome back to Washington, D.C. and we're on the National Mall, and just up here on the National Mall is where Joanne and her church plant had an outreach to the community with an exercise program that was open to everybody. Next up, we travel to Ecuador for a particularly heartwarming ministry.
These dogs and their owners are thrilled that these one-year in mission volunteers have become a part of their community. The young volunteers came to Ecuador's capital city, Quito, to share the love of Jesus. And surprisingly, this includes taking care of dogs. The story begins when a global mission pioneer couple, Christian and Maribel, moved into this community and found no Adventists living here.
We wanted to reach a group of professional people who, for various reasons, have not included the church in their hearts and lives.
In this upper middle-class neighborhood, people seem to have everything they need, like nice houses and cars.
The challenges in this place are that people don't open their hearts easily. First, we wanted them to open the doors to their homes.
Christian and Maribel started by finding out what the people truly needed. Since this was a large community, they recruited a team of one-year in-mission volunteers to help them. Here's what the team discovered. Community members really needed help taking care of their pet dogs.
There were quite a few people who wanted their dogs to be walked, and the one-year in-mission team helped with this. They helped by walking the dogs, caring for them, and they even held a health fair for pets.
By taking care of the dogs, the team got to know the owners.
Our objective is to reach people with a relationship by making friends, visiting them, and going to the park with them.
Because of these new friendships, community members started scheduling Bible studies when planning walks for their dogs. Over time, several people gave their hearts to Jesus.
I feel happy when someone accepts Jesus. It's gratifying to know that they know and believe in a God of hope and love.
Now, because of walking dogs and building relationships, a new congregation of believers meets each Sabbath and is still growing. Please pray for this group as they share the love of Jesus in this large city. Pray for global mission pioneers like Christian and Maribel, as well as the one-year in-mission team. God is using them to change lives here in Ecuador.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's program. And I hope that you've been inspired, but I also hope that you've been challenged by what you've seen and heard as we've taken a 360-degree view of mission around the world, from Ecuador to Indonesia to America. In many different parts of the world, global mission pioneers are planting new groups of believers. Workers are running urban centers of influence. The good news about Jesus is being shared. And I want to thank you so much for your continuing prayers, your gifts to global mission, your mission offerings, and your personal involvement. It makes a difference for those on the front lines of mission to know that there's a world church praying for them. Well, for Adventist Mission, I'm Gary Krause, and I hope that you can join me next time right here on Mission 360.